All right, let's dive into The 80/20 Principle by Richard Koch. This book is all about one simple but honestly life-changing idea that a tiny, tiny fraction of what we do is responsible for almost all of our results. We're going to explore how really getting this one single insight can completely transform your work, your business, and yeah, even your life.
And the author, Richard Cook, he puts it perfectly. He says it's about, quote, recognizing imbalance and using it consciously to achieve more with less effort. So this isn't just another productivity hack. It's more like a powerful new lens for seeing the world as it actually is and then acting way more effectively in it.
So, to really unlock this, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll get into the core idea of our imbalanced universe. Then, we'll see how that sparks a total revolution in business. After that, we'll apply it to mastering our own time and careers. And finally, we'll look at how to design a true 80/20 life. Okay, so where did this crazy, powerful idea even come from? Well, it all started more than 100 years ago with an Italian economist, a guy named Vilfredo Pareto. And he noticed this really strange but super consistent pattern, first in his garden and then in the entire economy. So Pareto's in his garden, right? And he notices that just 20% of his pea pods were producing 80% of all the peas. Then he looked at wealth and saw the same thing. About 80% of the land in Italy was owned by only 20% of the people. This led to the core idea. There's this predictable imbalance where a small minority of causes, what he called the vital few 20%, is responsible for the vast majority of the results. And the key thing is, the numbers might shift a little, but that imbalance, it's always there. And you know what? Once you start looking for this pattern, you see it everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Take beer, for example. It turns out that about 28% of drinkers consume 80% of the beer. Or just think about your own life for a second. You probably wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time, right? And 20% of your carpet gets 80% of the foot traffic. It's this fundamental law of nature just hiding in plain sight.
So why does this happen? Well, it's because the universe isn't linear. We're all taught to think that effort equals results, one to one. But reality is, well, it's kind of wonky. Small advantages create these things called feedback loops, and they just compound over time, leading to these massive, totally disproportionate outcomes. Think about a movie that gets a few good reviews. That leads to more people seeing it, which creates more buzz, and all of a sudden, it's a blockbuster. That's the 80/20 principle in action.
Now, you can imagine this nonlinear way of thinking has some absolutely radical implications for business, which, let's be honest, is so often just bogged down in complexity. The 80/20 principle gives us a way to cut right through all that noise and find what really drives profit. It all starts by asking this one simple but incredibly deep question. Most businesses just look at their average profitability, but averages are so misleading. They totally hide the fact that a few things are making a ton of money, while a whole lot of other things are actually losing money. The very first step is to pull that hidden truth apart. Okay, check this out. This is a real-world analysis from a consulting firm that just proves the point. Look at the M&A projects. That's mergers and acquisitions. They only accounted for 22% of sales, but and this is the crazy part, that same 22% generated a staggering 87% of their total profits. That's a powerful 87-22 rule. Once they saw that, the path forward became crystal clear. Focus everything on that vital 22%.
And this chart here from an electronics company shows the same exact thing visually. On the left side, you've got a handful of incredibly profitable segments just driving all the growth. But then look at the far right. You've got segments that are actively destroying value, just bleeding money. Without doing this kind of 80/20 analysis, it's all just dangerously lumped together into one big average. So why do so many businesses have trouble cutting those loss-making parts, even when the data is this clear? Well, they fall into a trap. They argue that those segments, they contribute to overheads, but this is a huge mistake. That unprofitable business is unprofitable precisely because of all the complexity and overhead it creates. The simple, profitable 20% often doesn't need any of it. The real enemy isn't being big, it's being complex.
And this kind of insight can lead to some truly revolutionary business models. Take this carpet company, Interface. They made a simple 80/20 observation. 20% of a carpet gets 80% of the wear. So what do? They stopped selling carpets and started leasing carpet tiles. Now they just pop out and replace the few worn-out tiles. It lowers costs for everybody and completely changed their entire business. Brilliant. Now, this powerful way of thinking doesn't just apply to companies. It's a complete game changer for our own time and our careers. It helps us finally see the really crucial difference between just being busy and being truly effective.
Think about it. Conventional time management is all about efficiency, doing more things faster. It's a checklist approach. But the 80-20 way is all about effectiveness, doing the right things. The goal isn't to cram more into your day. It's to figure out the 20% of your efforts that create 80% of your results and your happiness, and then just relentlessly do more of that.
This leads to this really fascinating concept called lazy intelligence, which is captured in this matrix from an old German general. He divided his officers into 4 types: the stupid and hardworking, a total menace; the intelligent and hardworking, great staff officers; but the intelligent and lazy, he said they were suited for the highest command. And why? Because they have the intelligence to see the vital 20% and the laziness to find the most direct, lowest effort path to get it done.
So how do we cultivate this lazy intelligence in ourselves? Well, Koch suggests 3 steps. First, specialize. Become a real expert in a small niche. Second, learn from the best. Actually watch what the leaders in your field do differently. And third, leverage other people. Employ people who are better than you at the 80% of tasks where you don't create the most value. All right, this brings us to our final and maybe the most important section, applying this whole principle not just to our work, but to designing a better life, focused on wealth, relationships, and just genuine happiness.
Let's start with investing. Conventional wisdom always says to diversify your portfolio, but 80-20 wisdom is the complete opposite. It suggests that most real, long-term wealth comes from a very small number of great investments. So the 80-20 approach is to choose a basket very carefully, put all your eggs in it, and then watch that basket like a hawk. It's about concentration, not spreading yourself thin.
The principle is just as powerful when it comes to our relationships. Ask yourself the question you see on the screen. Seriously, take a moment. You'll probably find that a few key people account for most of the value, the joy, and the support in your life. The message is clear. Go for quality over quantity. Consciously invest your time and energy in those vital few relationships. And finally, what about happiness itself? The book argues we can actually engineer it. Research suggests that 80% of our happiness happens in just 20% of our time. So the key is to figure out what those high-leverage moments are for you. Things like exercise, learning new things, or connecting with friends. And then systematically design your days to include more of that. And this really gets to the heart of the principle, its dual nature. You've got the hard side, which is all about efficiency, and the soft side, which is about life enhancement. They're like yin and yang. We use that hard efficiency to clear away all the clutter, that low-value 80%, to create the time and space to focus deeply on the life-enhancing 20% that truly matters. So at the end of the day, the 80-20 principle gives us this incredible framework for focusing on what truly matters. And it leaves us with this final, really powerful question to think about. What is the 20% of your life that's generating 80% of your joy in your results? And what's just one small step you can take, maybe even today, to expand?